Hey, welcome back to Coaches at Crown Brew Getting Coffee. We're glad you're joining us today. My guest today is Lance Rhodes, the SIU baseball coach. Going to have a great conversation about the state of SIU baseball, his career, and some changes in the game that are coming, and excited to talk to him. I want to thank my folks here at Crown Brew for letting us do this. I want to thank my partner, Ross Swinford, and Abby for all they do to put this together, Swinford Media and the boss, Bill Swinford, for agreeing to this 3 years ago. I want to thank my buddies at Adrenaline Fundraising, Jeff Scott and Matt, for all they've done to make this happen. I got a phone call yesterday, someone wanting their number to sign up for a fundraiser, and I'm proud of the fact they're serving so many people well. Marion Plumbing, Tony Gooch is your guy, commercial and residential plumbing needs. He's not only a great plumbing guy, but he's a great human being. See Tony. And don't forget, Ross has Swinford Wedding Videography. He can take care of all your wedding memories and wedding needs by doing that. So make sure you look at look at the screenshot they put up there for Ross and what he does on the side with that. And he also does a lot of stuff for Salukis Athletics in the social media side. So Ross, multi-talented guy. Lance Rhodes is my guest. I'm going to run through a little bio, Coach, real quick. And as I told you, I'll do the best I can because it's a little bit out of sequence, but it's on June 20th, 2019, you became the 8th coach in SIU baseball history. You enter the season, this season, the 6th season, with a 159 and 96 overall record in 5 seasons. You are the fastest coach to 96 wins in SIU history. You did it in 138 games. Itchy Jones reached 96 wins in 118 games from 1970 to 1972. You had a tremendous, one of the highlights they talk about was your 2022 season, the 3rd winningest season ever with 44 wins, NBC season record of 16 wins, and just a great season. We'll talk about that. It says in your bio, you transformed Salukis baseball into an offensive powerhouse, one of the winningest programs in the nation in your first 4 seasons. Let's see. You guided the Salukis to its first 40-win season since 1990 and 2021. That season included a 14-0 start, the best ever for the program, a 19-game winning streak that overlapped at the end of the 2020 season and the 2021 season, which became the second longest winning streak in school history. You posted 9 wins over top 100 RPI teams. 7 of those wins were in true road games, 5 wins over top 40 RPI opponents. You shattered in 2021, you shattered the program's single season home run record, hitting 84. The previous record was 75. SIU ranked in the top 30 nationally in nearly every offensive category: batting average, hits, doubles, triples, slugging percentage, sacrifice flies, runs scored, and runs per game. It talks about the fact your excellence goes beyond offense. Defensively, the 2 highest fielding percentage teams in program history were 2020 and 2021. SIU led the MVC and ranked in the top 10 nationally in turning double plays in both seasons. On the mound, SIU has ranked among the nation's leaders in shutouts and has finished 1st to 3rd in the MVC and ERA in its first 3 seasons. You've had previous stints in Southeast Missouri. You coached at Missouri. We'll talk about that. I love this part. A proven recruiter. How important is that? Rhodes has earned national recognition for his recruiting class at Missouri, pulling in top 35 ranked teams in each of his 3 seasons there. His 2019 recruiting class was ranked number 17 in the nation by Collegiate Baseball. Coach, welcome. There's a whole bunch I didn't mention, but man, for a young coach, you got a lot of great things in this bio and what you've achieved. Congratulations.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, and a lot of those things that you read is because I've been fortunate enough to be surrounded by a really good coaching staff.
Yeah.
And also some great players that have made those things come to life. And I definitely don't think it was just me by any means that got those accomplished. And as a former coach, I know you understand the importance of being surrounded by great players and great people. And I've been very lucky since I've been here to have that.
It's so true. And I know that coaches cringe when I read their bio and they're sick because you and I know we've never done anything on our own. Like every achievement we've ever had came from people that were with us as a staff or on the field doing some great things. But it does take leadership and it does take organization, and you've done that well, obviously. You've led well. And let's jump right in. Let's talk about you and I have met just a little bit. We don't know each other really well, but we met last summer during some youth baseball over at Carterville. And so where are you from? Where's your hometown?
So grew up at a town in southeast Missouri called Sikeston, Missouri.
Yeah.
So very similar feel to Southern Illinois.
Yeah.
So whenever we actually came back to Southern Illinois and started just to, mingle within all the towns around here, it really felt like where we grew up from, me and my wife. And so, yeah, it's nice to be back in a similar area to where we grew up. The crazy thing is actually only about an hour and 30 minutes from my hometown. But I never really came to Carbondale ever growing up. And it almost seemed like it was, in Chicago, so
I know
to
what
speak,
you mean.
Because we just never came this direction. And whether it was just because we were in Missouri playing sports, never even really crossed over in high school to play in this area. And I think that's something that high schools should do more. And this is so close, and you would get different competition and different teams. And I almost wish that growing up that we would have played more teams in this area just to get some new teams, new competition, and things like that. But it's so similar to the feel of Southern Illinois and southeast Missouri. So it almost felt like you were just coming back home.
What is Sikeston most known for?
Well, if you ever bring it up, they're going to ask you, "Have you ever been to Lambert's?" And,
that's why I bring it up.
Exactly. The crazy thing is like when you live there, you rarely go.
Yeah, and, isn't that weird? Yeah,
there's probably a handful of times that I've actually been there, and I've probably been there more now that I've coached here.
Yeah,
because the players always want to stop by. And so I've probably been to Lambert's more as a coach here at SIU than I ever was just growing up there in Sikeston.
I've had people come from far away that have been to some of the parks we have here, the different places you can hike and stuff more than I have. And I live here, and they've been there 4 or 5 times. I've been like once. I'm like, what's the matter with me? I'm not going. Sometimes in your own backyard, you don't take advantage of things. But I knew you'd mention Lambert's, so that's cool. I'm like you. I'm surprised there isn't more of a crossover between Southeast Missouri and Southern Illinois. I remember some teams playing Jackson, and we played Jackson some in the summertime, football-wise, 7-on-7. Cape Central used to be on some schedules a little bit, but there has not been a lot of crossover. Soccer does more of it, I think, than any other sport. I don't see it in basketball, football, baseball, and I'm like you. There was a time, having grown up here, I thought Cape Girardeau was further away than it actually is.
Right.
And then my wife and I went there for a wedding, and I'm like, it's like an hour.
Yeah.
It's the same distance almost as Paducah, and we go to Paducah a lot, but we don't go to Cape very often.
Well, and I think when you get in high school, you play the same team so many times.
It's true.
One, travel, I get that.
Yeah.
And then you got your conference opponents. But then even when you're out in a conference game, you're still in a tournament setting, you're playing the same teams. And I do think that there would be great benefit just to, cross over and get some of those Southern Illinois. And plus, it's kind of a rival there where you got a state versus state matchup.
I think so.
So I think it could be something that, if it was able to make it work within travel budgets and things like that, I think it would be a really good benefit for the teams.
Yeah, we have done that with Kentucky schools in football way more, and I think in basketball too, than we have the Missouri schools. And I'm not exactly sure why that is, but it is strange. And I have the same experience. Growing up there, you have siblings?
I have one older brother.
Yeah.
He's 5 years older than I am, and it's one of those things where he was more of an outdoors hunting, fishing type of growing up, and I just wasn't me.
Yeah.
I was always playing sports, and I used to go hunting, and to me, just didn't keep my attention.
What sports did you play in high school?
So I grew up playing soccer in the fall. I would play basketball in the winter, and then I would play baseball. And as I got into my junior year, and kind of had an idea that I had a chance to go play college baseball, just gave up basketball in the winter and transitioned from a fall sport to getting into ready for baseball in the wintertime, and started to do a little more training and things like that. So I loved playing every sport throughout the seasons because it just seemed like it made my days go quicker.
Yeah.
And there was something unique about each one. I loved Friday night basketball games.
Yeah.
I think there's something just special about Friday night sports.
Yeah.
I know Friday night football games.
For sure.
It's just an awesome feeling to kind of build your week up and be ready for that Friday night game. Yeah. And I'm sure it's a similar feeling for Saturday, football and things like that. But I just love the feeling of that. I still love basketball. I love watching basketball. I love the pace of basketball. I can remember when I was super little, I would have my dad take me to the Sikeston basketball games, and I always wanted to sit right behind the bench because we had a coach at the time that was a real fiery coach, and I just loved the timeouts and just seeing the interactions and the fire, and which is kind of odd because it's just not my coaching style. But I just enjoyed being behind that bench and seeing that and seeing the interactions. And but yeah, so my whole life I've grown up playing some sport at some portion of the year.
That's the beginning of the coaching bug, and maybe you didn't even know it. Like, fascinated by that huddle there, and you're sitting behind it, and you're kind of in on what's going on. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and as a player, and even growing up, I always loved the fiery coach.
Really?
I loved playing for that. It never bothered me. I actually enjoyed when they would get on me. I don't know why, but it's just, when we had a team huddle and the coach was getting after us, I just loved every part of that.
You don't hear that very often.
Yeah, no. For me, I did. And I look back on it, and it's interesting too, because I tend not to be that way as a coach.
That is really interesting.
So I find that an odd dynamic there. But yeah, I always enjoyed playing for that coach that had a little fire to him.
At what point? So I know you're a very successful baseball player in high school, and at what point did you know that you said your junior year? I think maybe you started stepping away from some winter sports. But were you getting recruited at a young age, freshman, sophomore year?
Well, so whenever I was growing up, there were a lot more restrictions on when you could be getting phone calls and when you could be getting recruited. So my recruitment really didn't pick up until the summer of my junior year, going into my senior year.
I got you.
And at the time, that's when travel baseball was just kind of beginning.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate that I was on a team out of St. Louis that had I think we had 19 players and 19 Division I players.
Oh, wow, that's great.
In the summertime. And guys like Max Scherzer was on the team. We had a bunch of draft picks.
Really?
Yeah. So I was very fortunate to be around that as a junior in high school. And but also just growing up, honestly, we were at a small town in Sikeston, and just out of pure luck, I had just a phenomenal group of athletes that I was able to grow up with.
Yeah.
And we were very successful in pretty much every sport that we played growing up. And I'd have to look this up for sure, but I think we lost, 4 or 5 high school baseball games my whole career at Sikeston.
Yeah.
And most of those honestly came in the state championship events. But I was very, very lucky to grow up with the athletes that I grew up with, and we kind of just fed off each other. We always wanted to be playing. We always wanted to practice. Whenever we had downtime, we'd be in the cages and things like that. So I was very fortunate to grow up with the athletes that I did.
There's so much power in that team. When you're accountable to a teammate, their expectations are pretty high for the team, for the season. They hold you accountable, working together. I love that idea. And sometimes young people think statistics get you noticed. success gets you noticed. If you want to get noticed, be a part of a highly successful program, and people will come, and they may not come to look at you, but they may notice you when they're looking at someone else. And I think you admitting that you were a byproduct of being around successful people is really cool, but that's how you get noticed, I think, more than anything else. Be a part of something special that's going on in that field as a teammate. And what position did you play?
So growing up, mainly played middle infield and pitched a little bit. And then I started to pitch more as I got older, and then went into college, and actually was very fortunate to be a two-way player. Doesn't happen a ton. I've always enjoyed the position player side of it more, just because I always just love baseball, all parts of it. But with the position player side, I always felt more involved in the game. And so I always enjoyed that more. But just like a lot of people, man, that slider, it was the death of my position player. And so my senior year, I just transitioned into pitching only, and just finished my career as a pitcher. And that's why I've enjoyed the coaching aspect of it too, where I started coaching pitchers and then I've kind of transitioned into coaching position players. And throughout my career, I've kind of been all over the map as far as what I've coached. And I think just being a player that's been on all sides of it has definitely helped that as well.
Yeah, your experiences at all different facets of the game has helped you, I think, be the coach, and you could step into a lot of different areas and be successful, I think, in working with them, and you have done that. When you left high school, you went to St. Louis University?
Yep.
And that's where you played for 2 years?
2 years.
Briefly, how was that experience?
So it was good. Looking back on it now, so at the time, I was an undersized freshman going into college.
Right.
And had an opportunity to go to a bunch of different junior colleges. And if I would have known then what I know now about junior college and all the pros that go with junior college, that would have probably been the best avenue for me personally, just from development, from a strength and conditioning side of it.
Sure.
I had an experience where I was on the field as a freshman. I was I was pitching as a freshman, but I thought I was ready, but I wasn't ready. And that's where, to me, I think the junior college scene would have been a really good avenue for me to go in and have a stepping stone to the Division I level, to where, by the time I was a junior and senior, I was physically ready at that point, and I was able to go compete at that level. But prior to that, I wanted that dream of being a Division I player, but I probably should have taken the junior college route. And I think that's why it's just such a good route for kids these days, as far as just the maturity of things and getting ready to actually go step on the field and contribute.
It's a big deal, though, getting recruited by a school like St. Louis University, and think I've got a chance to play at that level. And it does take some humility to choose the junior college route, but you're right. That is a really good path for a lot of athletes, especially ones like you said that maybe aren't physically where they're going to be at some point. They're not. Some guys develop, they're big in high school, but some guys like you and I didn't, develop like that really quickly. So did you had junior college offers, but you just chose the St. Louis offer?
I did.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where the junior college baseball scene wasn't what it is now back then too.
Yeah. Right.
The junior college scene has greatly improved over the last probably 20 years. And a lot of that goes, the coaches that are in junior college now. Junior college resources are a lot better now than they were. And I think the benefits of junior college to Division I, you see it throughout the country now. There's teams that are really utilizing the junior college scene. And it's tough for high school kids at this day and age. The recruiting landscape has changed, and it's always changed. But the players are so old now that are on the field at the Division I level. They're so big that using the junior college scene to get on the field and play. There's so many benefits. They actually get to play, I don't think there's actually a limit of games that they can play in the fall. Whereas you're only scrimmaging each other and you only get 2 outside games at the Division I level. But if you're a guy that needs to play and get on the field, you can get 20 plus games in the fall, plus a 56 game schedule in the spring. You're getting almost 80 games throughout that year. And so there's so many benefits to being able to go to the junior college route. And, whether it's 1 year or 2 years, you can definitely achieve whatever dream that you want to achieve at a Division I place through the junior college scene.
I talked to a college baseball coach a couple of years ago, and he was telling me about the recruiting process in Southern Illinois and in the area. And then he had a chance to go to Arizona and Texas and recruit. And he said he was stunned by the physical development of these players in Arizona and Texas compared to the kids in the Midwest. And I don't know that he had an answer of why that is, but he said they were ready to compete right out of high school into a program physically. Would you say that's true in your experience, that certain parts of the country, the kids are more ready physically than they seem to be in our area?
Yeah, I think, from our sport and what I've seen is a lot of those warmer weather kids who are just on the field playing games more.
Yeah.
You tend to see that they're processing the game, they're playing the game at a faster pace than somebody in a northern climate that, they're not getting out until May or June and playing, and their window is so short.
Yeah.
And a lot of those kids, they are playing football in the fall, they're playing soccer in the fall. So their baseball window is 2-3 months, whereas in somebody in California and Florida and things like that, they're playing from the end of January until August, and then if they transition to another sport, or a lot of times they just stay through the fall playing. So they're literally going from January to November playing baseball.
Yeah.
And I think there's just a lot of value in those extra games at bats that they get.
Yeah.
That they're the same age, but they might have almost 2 more, 3 more seasons on somebody.
That's true.
With the amount of playing time that they're getting.
Yeah, I appreciate your explanation, because that makes sense to me when you say it like that. You transferred to Southeast Missouri, not far from your hometown, so a bit of a homecoming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was SEMO ever an option when you were playing at Sikeston, or were they not an option for you, or is this someplace you maybe thought about going when you were younger?
So I'd always had a desire to play at SEMO. At the time, whenever I was growing up, Southeast Missouri was very heavy in junior college players. Like, you look at the roster, it was strictly almost a junior college roster.
Yeah.
Which at the time I didn't quite understand. So I really didn't have the option to go there out of high school. I wasn't recruited at SEMO out of high school, and I do get it now. As a coach, looking back on it. But when I got the opportunity to go back there as a junior, that's where I wanted to play. I had grown up going to SEMO games my entire life. If it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we could hop in the car, we'd drive up, we'd watch them play. Yeah. And I just always had a desire to play there, just being local.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad I got the opportunity to do that at some point, but never had the opportunity out of high school.
Yeah, that's okay. It worked out for you.
It did.
So you got those last 2 years at Southeast Missouri. You had good success there as a program. How the program was successful?
We were.
Yeah.
We lost in the championship game my senior year at the conference tournament, and had some successful seasons there. And the program's, it's always been a really good baseball program, and they've been good ever since I've left there as well. So it's just rich in baseball there.
Are you thinking, as you're playing there at SEMO, are you thinking already that coaching is my future? Did you know that?
Well, when I was going to school, I thought I was going to coach in high school.
Oh, okay.
I was an education major.
Sure.
And I actually, the year that I graduated and finished, in the summer, I was coaching an American Legion team in Jackson, Missouri. And as I was coaching it, you know, I'm sure you've experienced this, but I had a handful of kids that really wanted to work and get better. And then I had a handful of kids that were playing because it was just summer baseball. And I was like, man, I don't know if this is really what I'm about right now.
Yeah.
And so I actually still needed some more classes to finish my degree on the education side of it.
Yeah.
So I was going to go back to school in the fall, and then I got an opportunity to coach college, and I needed my degree.
Yeah.
And so I called the school, and I actually could get my general studies degree. And I was like, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm just going to get my degree this summer, and I'm going to go into college coaching. And I started as a volunteer assistant at Southeast Missouri State.
Wow. Yeah.
The next fall, right after I got done playing.
How was that transition from player to coach? Was that easy? Was it?
You know, I had some good teammates that treated me well, that made that transition good, because it could have been, you know, an odd transition just playing and then going and trying to coach those players. And I am thankful that the players that I actually coached, because I was in charge of the outfield group at that time, and pretty much that whole entire outfield group I had played with.
Gotcha.
And every one of those players, they never made me feel like I was one of their teammates. They actually made me feel like I was one of their coaches, which I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, I'd say that's really cool.
Also had some really good assistant coaches that I worked with that, even though I was right out of playing, they made me feel like I was a coach too. And very thankful for that transition there.
You were at Southeast Missouri as an assistant coach for how long?
So in 2009, it was my volunteer season.
Okay.
And then in 10, 11, and 12, I actually went and was an assistant coach at a junior college called Wabash Valley College in Mount Carmel, Illinois. And then had the opportunity to go back to Southeast Missouri in 2013, 14,
that makes sense.
15, and 16.
Gotcha.
And had some really good years there in that 4-year window. And
how was the Wabash College experience?
So that's where my eyes opened to junior college baseball.
Gotcha.
I never played junior college baseball, so I went there super naive about what I was getting into. And once I got there, I was like, this is amazing, the skill sets that these kids have. And I was very fortunate. I walked into a program that was very established.
Yeah.
The head coach had been there for almost 20 plus years, and they had already been winning. So my job was to hopefully help continue that.
Keep it going.
You know, I walked in, we had a 3rd round draft pick playing in center field for us. We averaged 50 wins the 3 years that I were there.
Wow, that's great.
And so I was very fortunate, and I'm thankful because once I left there, it shaped how I built my recruiting classes moving forward whenever I was at a 4-year level, because I realized the value of these players at the junior college level.
Wow, that's profound. That experience is setting you up for your future head coaching job. And that was your first head coaching opportunity outside of American Legion or something, correct? So,
well, I was actually an assistant coach at Wabash Valley.
I got you.
So assistant coach there, and then assistant coach at SEMO. I was never a head coach until here at SIU.
Wow, okay, I got you. Okay, so then the transition goes to Missouri in 2017. Tell me about that opportunity. You leave SEMO, but you go to Missouri.
Yeah, so the head coach that I was able to work for at Southeast Missouri got the head coaching job at Missouri from SEMO. So I'd worked with him for the previous 4 seasons. And as easy of a decision as it seemed, there was some possibilities that I was going to hopefully try to get the head coaching job at SEMO whenever he had moved on.
Yeah.
And so there was a couple day period there where I didn't know if I was going to go be an assistant at Missouri, be a head coach at SEMO. And I, looking back on it now, at the time I was frustrated because I could tell that they were not going to hire me as the head coach there. And I didn't quite understand that at the time, but looking at it now, I wasn't ready for that. I was really young at the time. I was 27, 28, 29 years old. But I thought, man, we had put together some really great recruiting classes. We've won the league 3 straight years. And I didn't understand all the parts of being a head coach and the maturity and things that it take place there. So looking back on it, I understand now why the administration there was going to go a different route, but I didn't quite get it there. So it led me to be an assistant coach at Missouri, which opened up a bunch of different growth for my coaching career. And I'm very thankful that I didn't get the head coaching job at SEMO at the time that I was hoping to get it, because it allowed me to go to Missouri and be an assistant coach, see a different aspect of all the coaches in the SEC, how they went about their business, how they recruited. And I think I'm definitely a better coach being surrounded by that group of coaches than I would have been if I would have just been a head coach right out of the gate at SEMO.
I was going to ask you, what was the impact of that Missouri experience? And you just answered that. I mean, the fact that you're just seeing how they ran their programs, but a real feather in your cap, especially at your time at Missouri, and I'm sure everywhere else, but it's mentioned in your bio about recruiting. Recruiting has been a strong suit of yours. And what would you attribute that to? Is there something, what's the magic behind your ability to recruit and recruit well?
Well, I think when I first got to be a volunteer coach at SEMO, I worked hand in hand with a guy named Rick McCarty, who's now the head baseball coach at Abilene Christian University in Texas. And I just remember right from the very beginning, he just told me, man, like, recruiting is the lifeblood of our job. Like, we can be the greatest coaches in the world, but our base has to be high.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of took that to heart. And even as a volunteer assistant, every single day I walked in, I felt like it was my job to at least mention somebody to our coaching staff. So I was constantly searching the internet. I couldn't make phone calls at the time as a volunteer. I couldn't actually recruit a player, but I felt like it was my job to give our coaches players' names. So every single day I was coming in saying, hey, I got this guy for you. This guy's got, a really good stat line. And so I always just found a lot of interest in trying to find players. And then I always viewed it as our competition. Like, I wasn't on the field playing anymore, but my competition was to beat you on the recruiting side of it.
Right.
And then, do our best to develop those players once we got them. But, in college, we're just so fortunate that we get to pick the players that we want to play for us.
Yeah.
And I always just found enjoyment in, trying to get that player to choose us. And, I've also been very fortunate that I had some really good assistant coaches to help me along the way with that. I definitely don't take all the credit. All the really good players that we had, I didn't sign every single one of those by any means. But I just, I thought it was awesome. When I first started, I didn't have kids. I was always married when I was the recruiting coordinator at the very beginning. But with not having kids, I mean, I was in a car, I was traveling, I was on the road all the time.
Yeah.
And I just enjoyed going from tournaments to different cities, to different places. And I just enjoyed that aspect of it, just building that class. And because I knew that having a base of really good players, if we coached them the right way, I knew there would be some wins along the way. And so I just always enjoyed that, competitive nature of the recruiting side of it.
Well, you certainly, you can feel the passion you've got for it. And I mean, I think a lot of guys, that I've had experience with saw recruiting as work, as something they had to do, something they didn't love to do. And I can tell you took it to heart and you enjoyed it. And I think that makes a big difference when you're able to go out and do it and something you like to do. I love the competitive side. You took it as a competition. I can't compete on the field. I can compete for this recruiting class. That's really, really cool. So we said 2019, right? The SIU job is open. You see it open, and you said, I think that's something I want to apply for. What made you lean into the job at SIU?
You know, it's so I grew up, me and a guy named Dylan Lawson, he's a hitting coach for the Boston Red Sox right now. Me and him kind of grew up coaching together. When we started at SEMO, we went to Missouri together. And we always played SIU. And I always remember mentioning to Dylan, you know, I think there's something about that program that they could be really good. And I was like, if that job ever comes open, I think it's something I'm interested in. And one, it was close to where I was from.
Sure.
So a lot of regional ties. My wife's from Cape Girardeau.
Yeah.
There's not many times in college athletics that there's jobs that you believe are good jobs that are close to where you or your wife are from. And, you know, it was never open for a long time. And I can actually remember, I mean, I was at CBC High School in St. Louis watching a tournament on the day that the news broke that this job was open. And I mean, it was probably 5 seconds after I heard that, I called my wife and was like,
wow.
Hey, SIU's job is open. And she was like, well, go for it.
Yeah.
So, you know.
It's good to have that wife's blessing.
Yeah. Well, she's all out. She's a homebody. So she loved the idea of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, even though it comes open, you think, man, what are the possibilities, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, and just so very fortunate that I even got an opportunity to interview for the job.
Sure.
And, you know, it's one of those things where there was a lot of dominoes that fell to get me in the seat. And, but I'm very thankful for that to happen.
Well, you got off to a good start. Of course, you take the job, right? I think COVID's going to hit pretty quickly after you become the new baseball coach.
Yeah, so we were, I think, 18 games into our season.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, again, you can look at everything and there's a negative. You can look at everything and there's some positives. COVID for our baseball program at SIU was the best thing that could have ever happened.
Wow, that's interesting.
When COVID hit, we had a group of players who were out of eligibility that were our best players. I think we had like 7 or 8 of these players. Well, due to COVID, they all got a year back.
Right.
But we also were building a recruiting class with that. So we were able to bring in a recruiting class and pair that recruiting class with the 7 or 8 best players that we had on our team. And if we would have finished the 2020 season, we would have not finished probably in the top half of our league. We weren't good enough at that season to compete for a league championship. But with us being able to get our best players back and then put a class with them, you saw from 20 to 21 what we were able to do. That 21 group won 40 plus games.
Yeah.
And a large reason why we did that is because of that group of players that would not have been on our team because they would have graduated in 2020. So the COVID year, even though it was a disaster, that set our program up for success in 21. And we would have not, we probably wouldn't have been the team in 21 if we didn't have COVID happen.
That is such a great story. And I think, you know, from my perspective at the high school level, teams either thrived because of COVID. Some, I think, just survived COVID and didn't do well beyond. I think it crippled a couple of Southern Illinois football programs. But I think we were able to manage it well enough. I think in some ways it brought our team closer together just because it's all we had.
Yep.
those moments together, those times the state did let us practice. But I love the fact that it ended up being a benefit to you in a strange way, because for a lot of programs it was not a benefit. It was detrimental, and I love that. So that was the 21 season was a really, really successful season for you because of that. And I love the fact that you give credit to that situation, because a lot of people just, I don't know, kind of lost their way during COVID. And I get it. It's no judgment. I get it. It was a very difficult, it was a strange time.
Yeah.
We were navigating stuff as coaches we had never had to navigate before. So you've been here now. You're going to be starting your 5th season?
So 21, I consider my first year.
I got you.
20 is technically the first year that I was here, but like I said, got cut short. So going into 26 now would be, basically 5 full seasons.
What is the key in your mindset? We get into the coaching aspect of it here. What's the key to sustained success? Is the recruiting process a big part of that? The key to maintaining, because being good for a year is great, but the good programs continue that success. What do you think the keys to sustaining success at SIU is, like you've done?
Well, number one, like, we do have to have a baseline of players that have an ability level that meets the standards of being a successful Division I team. So we've got to make sure our roster is talented.
Yeah.
But two, I think the older I get, the more value that we put on having great people in our program. People that are willing to work extremely hard and things like that. Now, those, don't get me wrong, those same kids have to be talented as well.
Sure.
And that's what we have to do, is like, there's so many kids that are going to play, college sports, that are going to play Division I sports. And we've got to find the kids that are talented, but also fit the personality that we're looking for. And I think that's what makes every team unique is, a lot of our players, they tend to look like our coaching staff, with the personalities of our coaching staff, because that we tend to gravitate towards that player in the recruiting process. So we have an expectation of what we want our person to be like, along with our player. And then I think once we have that baseline, the relationship piece of it is so vital, where we've got to get that player to trust us as a coaching staff. And you only trust somebody is if you enjoy being around that person, if you have a relationship with that person. The good thing about our sport is we don't play until February. And we've got from August until February to build those relationships. And when you have a team of 34 players, it takes a while.
Sure.
And every specific coach is going to have a relationship with their group. And as a head coach, I try to mingle within all. And that's, to me, where you can challenge a player, where you can push a player, is if they are if they're willing to trust you as a coach and know that you're doing everything you can for the betterment of their personal lives, their playing career, then you can ask for changes, you can ask for adjustments, and they're willing to do that. But there's a lot that goes into culture. I know everybody just uses culture nowadays. That's kind of like a word that's thrown out there.
Talk about it all the time. Yeah.
I don't necessarily think there's just like, hey, if you do this, you're going to build your culture. I think culture is daily.
Yeah. I do too. Absolutely. And I think it's unique to each coach and program. You just can't take a cookie cutter and say, this is what you should do.
Right.
Because your situation and your personality, it's got to be who you are too.
Yeah. And I think the one thing so I was an assistant coach my whole career. Until the last 6 years of my life, I was always an assistant. So I have a lot of value in assistant coaches. I think they bring a lot to a team just because I was one for so long.
Yeah.
And I think what I've tried to do as a head coach is I know my personality, and I don't want my assistant coaches to have the same personality.
Yeah.
And I try to, when we get together as a team at the very beginning, I let the players know my personality. I tend to be more reserved, quiet, and that sometimes is a weird dynamic for players to see as a head coach. And where I first realized that it can work is whenever I got to Southeast Missouri, the head coach that was there, Steve Beazer at the time, he's got a very similar personality as me, where I had grown up with the fiery rah-rah, and when I got there with him, and he was always very successful, by the way, he was quieter, he was more reserved, he had high expectations. If you weren't meeting those expectations, it was one-on-one meeting, like never yelled at a player on the field, never embarrassed a player on the field. And I can remember coming home to my wife at times and being like, man, I don't know if this works. Like, but then we get into it and we're successful and players are responding and they want to play for him because they know that he's there for them. He's behind them.
And there's a respect.
And there's a respect. And not that he ever didn't get on a player or get on our team, but whenever he did, it was like, whoa, okay, like it catches your attention.
Yeah.
And I just realized, okay, I've seen him do it, and my personality is like that. So I'm not going to try to be a different coach as a head coach. I'm just going to be who my personality is. And then I surround my assistants. My assistants have a lot more outward going personalities than me because I need that. We need that on our team.
In the hiring process of assistants, does that come into account?
It definitely is.
Yeah.
Like whenever I am calling around and talking to other coaches, hey, has this guy got some energy? Has this guy's got some passion? I need that in order to balance out our coaching staff. And I think that's been the biggest help is just I express that to our players. Like, hey, if I'm around you and I'm not just rah-rah, like that's just who I am.
That's who I am, yeah.
And because sometimes, when you kind of walk by a player and, the coach is just like, hey, how you doing? You're like, is this guy like mad at me or something or what?
Yeah.
And so I think we just explain who our personalities are at the beginning and our players, once they see it consistently, like I show up and I try to be the same person every day. I'm not going to try to walk out and one day be high and I can't live up to that every day.
Well,
that's just not who I am.
It's confusing, to the kid,
So I just try to be the same personality every day. Let our assistant coaches be their same personality every day. And then we kind of cover that all within our coaching staff.
I love you mentioned this, and I think it's important. I hadn't thought about it. The advantage you have is coming in August, and you've got several months to lay a foundation of culture where the players can really get to know you, where in the football side, my side, you start in August, you hit the ground running. Now, you've had some summertime to do that, which is an advantage, but you've got several months. They can go to class, they can get their feet under them academically, and you get to slow down a little bit and ease into it. Where football, I feel like, is just it's full speed ahead from the day school starts, even before. But let's get into some changes in baseball as we finish up here, Coach. And I appreciate the philosophical and cultural assessments, and I love the recruiting process stuff is great. You talked about before we went on air about changes in the redshirt situation that may come or is coming to collegiate sports. Can you explain that?
Yeah. Again, nothing is finalized with this.
Right.
But there is a good possibility that student athletes at the collegiate level, probably sooner than later, will have a 5-year window rather than a 4-year window to play. Now, when in your 4 years, there's a 5-year clock, so to speak, that you can have 5 years to get 4 years in. So you can take a medical red shirt. You could take just an actual red shirt where you didn't get to compete. And then you still have 4 years to play. Whereas they're looking at moving to the model of just having 5 years. As soon as you enter into NCAA, you get 5 years. Whether there's an injury in there or you just didn't get on the field, it's still going to be 5 years.
Right.
So that's still something that has to get passed. It is going to be addressed in January of this year. Now, whether it passes in January or it gets moved down to a later date, it is definitely on the radar, and I definitely think it's something that has enough steam and enough interest that I could definitely see that being put in place much sooner than it's not.
When I have baseball coaches on here, I have baseball questions about changes to the game. So I hope my audience doesn't tire of me asking these. But I love a actual baseball guy's perspective on this. So I'm going to run through some stuff with you real quick.
Yep.
The automated ball strike calls, umpire no longer doing it. What do you think about that?
Mixed feelings. I do like the right call, but I also like the human element of having emotion in the game. I don't want the game to get where you're just a bunch of robots out there. And there's something that's nice about, as a coach, as a player, the disagreement.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think when you take that completely out of the game, it almost like there's no emotion between an umpire or a player, or umpire or a coach.
Yeah.
And also, as I think about it as an umpire, there's something to be said about having to be able to call a game and the fun of that, rather than just standing back there and just telling you what's in your earpiece. But I do understand of wanting to get the call right.
Yeah.
But I think the human element is something that's so vital in all the sports that we play.
Is it coming though? Is the ball strike thing, is the umpire being taken out of the ball strike equation? Is that coming?
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think for sure at the professional level, where those umpires they're amazing as it is.
I think what's killed the umpires is the TV box. They can't win.
Right.
If you take that out, fans are less picky about it. As soon as a fan sees that ball outside the box, they're going to complain.
Right.
And it used to be that wasn't the case. You just assumed that may have been on the, you know what I mean? So I think if they're going to take care of the umpires, they got to take that box off the screen. That's not going to happen. So, I'd hate to be scrutinized like that in my job, where everyone knows if I do make a mistake, it's right there for everyone to see. So they banned the shift. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm for that.
Me too.
And so we still have it in college baseball.
Yeah.
You can still shift in college baseball. And there's so much more data that we have now than we were ever given 10 years ago. We are in an era of college baseball now where everything's on video. Everything is tracked through TrackMan, which is kind of the automated system that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So we know exactly where, especially when you get into facing a kid that's a junior, senior, and he has got 600, 700 bats. You know where he's going to put the ball in play.
What about the argument that if you want to shift, I'm going to hit it the other way? Is the argument is it lazy for a player to say I'm going to keep pulling it, I don't care where you shift to, instead of I'm going, if I'm a left-handed hitter and you're going to shift, I'm going to hit it to left field.
I do think that it's tougher than it looks, especially at the major league level.
Sure.
Whenever those pitchers, they're hitting a dot.
Yeah.
And they're throwing the ball to the shift.
Sure.
So whenever you're trying to take a pitch that's thrown in a location, it's hard to maneuver the bat, especially at 98 miles per hour, to hit it in a certain spot.
You mean it's harder than it is in my easy chair to say, hit it the other way? I know. What about the runner on second in extra innings?
I'm against it.
Yeah, me too.
I do think, so the college game, every couple years, we have what they call a rule year. So not this season, but next season, what they're probably more likely going to do is we're going to play straight up extra innings for the 10th and 11th inning. Once it starts the 12th, then they're going to put a man on second base.
That's what I want. I don't want it. I don't want it in the 10th and the 11th inning.
Yeah. And I'm okay with that.
Should they bunt the runner over every time?
I'm not a big believer in absolutes.
Okay.
But I do think that there's many times where they should in Major League Baseball that they don't.
I'm frustrated by the fact that they don't. And I know there's arguments, but I want anyway.
In Major League Baseball, there's a lot of things that some people just don't understand, where people aren't getting contracts because they bunt a guy over to third base. People aren't getting contracts because they try to steal sometimes.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of influence from other outside people other than just the players and coaches that are making those decisions.
I wonder, about that because things aren't happening that I think should, but I think there's pressure on players to not do certain things.
Yep.
So I appreciate you adding that because that's a feeling I had, or why else wouldn't they be doing it? So the death of the 300 hitter, I miss that. I miss the guy that can put the ball in play, and the kid from San Diego, Arise. I love watching him play. I grew up with a lot of 300 hitters when I was a kid, and I'm frustrated by the amount of strikeouts. Does it bother you?
The strikeouts are tough to watch at times, but I will say the hitter now is facing a pitcher that is so incredibly good. They're throwing the ball so hard.
Yeah.
We've got people in Major League Baseball right now throwing 90-mile-an-hour sliders.
Yeah.
15 years ago, people were throwing a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, and you were thinking, this guy's throwing amazingly hard.
I'm not even impressed by 100-mile-an-hour anymore.
No.
I used to be.
Yeah, it's
now,
commonplace.
I'm like,
So is there going to be changes where maybe the pitching mound goes back? I don't know. I think there's going to have to be changes in order for the 300 hitter to come back because it is just such a hard thing right now. With the data, a pitcher knows how his ball gets a hitter out now.
Yeah.
And they're more specific on just throwing that to where they know if I throw this at a certain location, you're not going to hit it. And they perfect that. And the amount of times that you face a single pitcher are getting reduced.
Yeah.
Because pitching staffs now, they go through the order twice most of the time, and then they go to another pitcher.
Yeah, and then interleague play means Cardinals don't play the Pirates as many times.
Right.
We don't see those same guys as much.
Yeah.
We see a lot of different pitchers. Yeah. I love your insight because you know so much more about baseball than I do. So you're making this a lot better for me. I need points to argue. Pitchers and pitch count. I mean, I'm looking at Bob Gibson's career complete games, and I'm thinking he had more complete games in a season than guys do in a career. Why is that?
Well, I think back then that was like what they prioritized. And now teams and organizations just don't prioritize that because we've got specialty guys in bullpens that are throwing 100 to 105 with a 90 to 95 mile an hour breaking ball, where you didn't have that back then, where Bob Gibson on his 120th pitch was better than the bullpen guy that they were going to go to. Whereas in now, if you can get a starter through the fifth, I mean, they've got it broken down 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th of 4 guys that are going to come in and throw 100 miles per hour. And they're either going to match it up with a left-hander facing a bunch of lefties or a righty facing a bunch of righties. And the matchups are just so strong as far as the probability of those relievers getting those guys out that the data says you should go to this. And the coaches at that level, a lot of them have their hands tied. Like, they have to do it because that's what the analytical department says that they're going to do. The people in charge, not in the dugout, but the people in charge are a lot of times making those decisions.
Are we overusing analytics and losing some gut calls?
I think there's a balance that needs to be in there that I think you've seen it start to come back to try to balance that out, but it's still more on the analytical heavy side of it.
I realize the computer may say, the analytics may say, he doesn't hit this pitcher well, but if he's seen the ball right now in the last 6 games really well, I don't know that the analytics doesn't measure, because baseball, sometimes you're just seeing the ball better than maybe you have been previously. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So I wonder, I miss kind of that gut thing sometimes where I got a good feeling he's seeing the ball well, I'm going to let him bat, instead of just, well, the computer says I need to pinch hit.
I think now a lot of the decisions that they make is if it doesn't work, they feel like they're not wrong because they went with what the data said.
I agree.
Rather than, now if you go with your gut and you were wrong, you just get scrutinized for it because you should have went to the matchup that the data said you should have went to. So now to stay out of that conflict or to stay out of that questioning of that, you just always go with the data and you just say, well, he didn't get the job done, and you never get scrutinized for that.
That's a great point. I never thought about that side of it, but yeah. Last baseball question. Are you glad the DH came to the National League and we don't have to watch pitchers bat anymore?
100%.
So
all for it.
I got so tired of watching them. That inept ability to look like an athlete at the plate. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's such a huge change, especially when you were in the playoffs and you saw when you went to the American League side and you got to see a DH and you didn't have to see the automatic out or always a bunt. That was one of the just great positive changes that Major League Baseball had.
Yeah, I agree. Last question, and then we'll kind of close up. Baseball managers, maybe that people know professional level, that you like their style. Like I like to watch him manage. Is there anybody that stands out?
We talked about this earlier. One of my favorite managers growing up, and probably because I watched him all the time, was Bobby Cox.
Okay.
One, like if you go back and you listen to all the stories of Bobby Cox and player interviews, they always had so much respect because he always stood up for his players. He always had great relationship with his players.
Yeah.
And he was also like super fiery too.
Yeah.
I think he's got thrown out more than any manager in baseball.
Yeah.
And I always was drawn to those type of coaches.
Yeah.
And again,
it's funny.
Kind of different because that's not me.
You're not that guy, but you like it. Yeah.
That was one of probably my favorite guys to watch.
Yeah.
And just every time you hear players talk about him, you understand that he was such a relationship type of a coach. Even though he showed fire on the field, every player that played for him loved playing for Bobby Cox.
Yeah.
And, that's, I think, the goal as a coach is that you want those players to play for you and play hard for you, and
that's
the only way you're going to be able to do that is if they love you as a coach.
That's a huge part of it, getting the players to play for you.
Yep.
And got to win them over. You got to win the players before you win the games, right?
That's right.
What's next for you in Saluki baseball 2026?
Every team every year is unique and different.
Yeah.
And we're just getting started. We just started fall practice, and we're kind of in that relationship building phase of it. As we are, we've got about half our team back from last year. We got a half our team that's coming from different programs, whether that's junior college, high school, whether that's 4-year transfers. So we are in the process of, one, building the relationships, but two, letting those new players understand what the expectations of how we play the game are. And every single day, the effort that we're, supposed to play the game with, the execution of how we're supposed to play the game. So we're really in the teaching phase of it right now. Yeah. We have ability. My expectations are the same as, they have been in the last couple of years where, we're trying to hit the 40-win mark, and we still haven't hit the postseason, which has been a huge disappointment. And there's nobody that feels the disappointment any more than I do. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I think you would understand as a coach, if it had been done, it hadn't been done since 1990 here. If it had been done in, 2001 or 2003, I feel like we would have already accomplished it. But it's like, it's this brick wall that we're hitting. And because it hasn't been done so long, it just it builds another layer every single year. Yeah. And it's just going to take one of these classes to knock that brick wall down. And then I think it'll just build off of itself quickly. So and, that to do it the first time in a long time, that's the toughest year.
It is.
And you got to do a lot of really good things to make it happen. You got to have some luck fall your side to make it happen. But I think we're on track to do it sooner than later. I hope it's this year. But we have a lot of ability. So, I'm excited to see what we're capable of doing.
Let's talk about your family real quick. Wife and kids?
Yep. Wife, Brittany, three boys, 12, 10, and 7.
You're a busy guy.
She is.
She is. Yeah.
But, The one thing that I do appreciate with having the kids is it's definitely made me a better coach. I know that. The one thing I always tell our parents is, I'm going to coach your kid the way that I would want my kid to be coached. Of course. And that doesn't always mean I'm not always going to have my arm around him. I will. But I'm going to push him, and I'm going to challenge him, and I'm going to love on him when he needs it, and I'm going to, put my foot in his butt when he needs that too.
Just like your own.
Yeah. And I think you have a different perspective for sure whenever you have kids, and not that you have to have kids to have that perspective, but for me, it's made me understand when a kid's struggling, like I'm not just like, where's the next player? Because if my kid's struggling, I want to help him out. Yeah. And, it's definitely made me have a different feeling towards those players rather than just looking at them as a player to coach. And so I try to take that in perspective whenever players are on the field. I want to make sure that I would treat them just like I'd want my kids to be treated whenever they get, whether it's junior high, high school, or beyond.
That's an old saying that I believe in, that you see the world through your eyes until you have kids, and then you see the world through their eyes. And when you have kids, you start looking at your players, as you said, how you would want them to be treated and the way they see the world rather than just how you see it. And I think that's pretty cool. Well, I got to know you at some youth baseball. I mentioned to you my podcast a long time ago. I'm glad we finally got to hook up, and I appreciate you being here. I wish you all the luck. You had a great start to a great career. You've done a lot of amazing things already, and I'm sure the future is going to be really good to you.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, and the Southern Illinois community they're into sports.
They are,
and whether that's high school level, the collegiate level. I mean, they support SIU. I think this is more one of the unique areas where at our level, you tend to see, whenever I was a SEMO, you saw Mizzou everywhere.
Yeah.
Here in Southern Illinois, the thing that I appreciate probably more than anything is when you walk out of here, you're going to see SIU. Yeah. People love it. You see them wearing the shirts. You don't see Illinois here.
Yeah.
And I think that passion, you feel that as a coach, that it motivates you to want to make sure that your team is really a good product on the field because you know that they love SIU here.
That's right.
And I think that's a motivation for us to continue to putting out that product that they can come and watch and be happy that they're there.
I used to sit on that hill when I was in school.
Well, we got to get you back out.
I would love to go back out. I'm going to call my brother and we're going to go out and sit on the hill. I'll let you know the day I'm there. We'll be cheering for you.
Good.
And I wish you all the best. We'll keep following.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me.
Hey, thanks again to our sponsors. We thank for Crown Brew, Ross and Abby, Swinford Media, Swinford Wedding Videography, my buddies at Adrenaline Fundraising, Tony Gooch and Marion Plumbing. And thank all of you for watching, for listening, and being so supportive. Got us continue a great lineup this fall. Coach Rhodes is part of that. And I appreciate you being with us today. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.